morning.
Good morning.
We're going to go ahead and start off with, I received the bargaining and section extension agreement number 3 and 4. That's the only thing I changed on the actual document. This still said 2 on both of them.
Oh.
So I just put 3 and 4.
That's fine.
But the dates are the same. So that will extend us. The first extension will get us to June 4th, 2015, and the fourth one will get us to June 19th, 2015. Currently, we have a June 11th scheduled, which we will be posting. We just need to determine the location.
I also had on my calendar that we had tentatively reserved June 15th and 16th, which is a Monday and Tuesday.
Yes.
And so right now I've got 11th and 15th and 16th, and we're hoping for, we don't know where we're going to meet yet. But
Right. Oh, yes, okay. On the 15th and 16th, I asked if y'all were available that day, and, and so I guess you're telling me that you are. So
we are.
Okay. So 11, 15, and 16. Today's the 19th, is that correct?
it is of May. It just feels like June.
Yeah, it does. I'm signing the extension agreement number 3.
John, you're gonna have to sign for
3.
John. But we promise you that John is official,
Okay.
as official as we can make him. Okay.
Right on here. That looks good.
Okay, there's one for you, Roxy.
How did your barbecue go, Mr. Tillman, if it gave away?
I was working. I don't know, I think the weather kind of hit it.
We gave out about 70 plates, but it wasn't what we expected because of the weather.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna note for my team that 2 of my team members may have a conflict on the June 16th, but we'll try to work that out.
Okay.
So just let you know. One member, one alternate. Yeah, but I haven't talked to Ed. I haven't talked to Ed yet. All right, well, we have forwarded to you an email. What we have attached for you, because when we started off with these proposals, it started to include economic issues. One of the questions that we had asked you with whether you had costed anything out.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you didn't have the costing and that you would rely on us to do it, so we have been working on that. So what we have provided to you is a document with 3 pages. The first 2 pages include the costing of the fire union's proposal. And what I went ahead and did was we both had submitted our initial proposals. On the first page, you would find the fire union's initial proposals costing as of February 28th, 2015. And what we were looking at was what were the total package, initial proposals that the fire union had placed on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did by description was identify all of the economic issues that were presented during your initial proposals. And because you had asked for a wage increase to include almost 5 years, we understand that year 1, I think the assumption is that those are calculated to take effect June 1. That was the assumption used just for making these calculations. We know that that may not be true, so those numbers may change, but not very significantly. But just so that you know, on that 2015 year one, June 1st is the assumption. We hope to have it ready to go by then. We're
By
ready
June
to go.
1st?
By June 1st, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see
Well,
if we can get here and done in the next couple of hours.
You guys call me an optimist.
So
Keep hope alive.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll adjust those as necessary, but I just needed to let you know that's how we had been calculating these, or
Mhm.
how they were calculated. On the description, I didn't put the article number, but the description is pretty self-explanatory, because it may encompass one or two articles, just depending. We have included the battalion chief, 120 step, the meal from $6 to $8, uniform allowance. I know that you have extra proposals or additional proposals that you've submitted this morning.
Mhm.
We'll adjust the costing as we go along, but this was the costing for the initial package. The significant expense or new money sought with regard to the fire union's initial proposals were the wage increases over almost 5 years of 1.5%, 3, and 4. And that was approximately $14.9 million in new monies total. The other significant expense after that was the ambulance station staffing, which was an approximate $7.9 million of new monies. There were some other big costs. The next one was certification pay, which is an estimated cost of $5.1 million. Assignment pay, which is an estimated cost of $2.5 million in new monies. And those were the ones that were very significant. The total, you can go through around, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, feel free to itemize those for me and go ahead and email them to me. That would probably be the easiest.
I can give them to you right now, and we got your
Okay.
financial guru.
But the total amount for the total cost in new monies of the initial package is approximately $33.7 or $33.8 million. And as you know, this is we currently have a fire budget of approximately $49.7 million for the fiscal year 15. So we're not in these costs. We're not including costs that are already budgeted. Okay. We've taken into account costs that we already incur and discounted them from coming up with these numbers.
Okay.
On the second page, we have the fire union's current proposals costing as of yesterday, May 18th, 2015. It doesn't include the proposals that you have emailed me and that we're going to discuss this morning. But as you see, you've taken away taken the ambulance station staffing off of the table, which was a significant cost to begin with. So that automatically takes away that $7.9 million. You also took away, or the supplemental insurance was going to maintain status quo, so that wound up in a zero cost. And I believe what we read from your last proposal on the adding the education incentive pay to drag up, that was also taken away, so that becomes a zero cost. That you're not looking to add that again, or add that into that calculation. So the cost, although the total cost of the packages have gone down from $33.8 million to $23.6 million, the wage proposal increased from $14.9 million to $15 million. And that was attributed to the change in the signing bonus, the change in your proposal with regard to the signing bonus. So those are the cost in the fire union's proposals. As far as the city's proposals, the first one is our initial proposals as of, I think we finished placing our initial proposals on March 6, 2015. The total amount of new monies that we have placed on the table at that time was a total of $2.3 million. Since then, we have TA'd some stuff. We have worked on, worked on stuff, and we've given you a counter proposal with regard to base wages at this time. That has increased the salary increases from $1.6 million to $2.8 million over approximately 4 years. These on year one was also assuming that this would take into effect June 1st, so it doesn't account for a full fiscal year on year one, just like the costing on the union's proposals. But what we have currently on the table is we have approximately $3.6 million in new monies that we have placed on the table in terms of our proposals.
And Roxy, I'm sorry, what did you say the current fire department budget is?
It's approximately 49. I placed it in the email. Let me look at it real quick. The current estimated fire department budget is $49.7 million for fiscal year 15. Fiscal year 15, that means.
The year ending September 30th, 2015.
Okay, the year ending September 30th, 2015. Just for clarity.
Okay. Can I ask some questions about it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Number one, how much time did y'all spend on this? How much time did it take to prepare this document?
In totality, from the time we started 15 months ago, or whenever that was?
No, I just did prepare this document that you presented today. How long did you spend on it?
Maybe 12 hours.
Okay.
12, 16 hours.
And I'd asked for some economic information, the cost of, the savings to the city from your overtime proposal. Have you done that yet?
No, that was asked of, we haven't done any cost savings, if any, from the overtime proposal. We're actually working on that currently. I was actually clarifying what we need to payroll this morning so that they can start work. Like I said, they weren't gonna be able to start working on it till Thursday, but I think they're starting to work on it today. So that, unfortunately, that's gonna be something that's done manually, so we don't have that information, but no, this costing does not take into account any cost savings, if any, from the overtime.
So that would be a subtraction from your proposal. I mean, you show right now that you've got 3.5 million, and whatever that savings is, you would reduce that number further, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's how that works, because currently, and I'm talking off numbers off the top of my head. Currently, we have $2.2 million in overtime budgeted. I believe it may be going over a lot of the times. So what we have is money that's already currently budgeted. If you're looking for us to find new monies within the fire department for your proposals that are placed in there, then yes, that may be a possibility that we're going to.
No, but I mean, this is simple arithmetic. If you're paying X amount for overtime now, and your overtime proposal results in a reduction of that, that would account for part of this 3.5. That would reduce the 3.5, wouldn't it?
Oh, of what we're placing on the table?
Yeah.
We're not looking at this point. Our proposal is not to cut the actual overtime budget, because of course we have to see what the operational needs are. So I can't say we're gonna cut that automatically. I know what you're talking about, simple arithmetic, but I don't know that really applies in this particular case.
I think it does. I mean, in other words, you got a certain amount that you're paying, and it's just like salaries. I mean, you're paying these salaries. If there was no increase, you're still paying these salaries next year, and you would continue paying overtime under the present system. It would cost you X amount. Your proposal saves you money, and that comes off the bottom line. It's just that simple.
Well, if that's true, then and we look within the department to find money to add to what we're putting on the table, then yes. But what we're placing on here is new money that's not already budgeted. Well,
and that's another. I mean, I see one of the lines, ambulance shift pay $25, but that replaces a current benefit.
Actually, no, we've taken into account on that particular, cost, I think we were taking into account what was already being paid, and let me see if
I
Eddie can
think
do
that we think we're gonna lose money on that deal. If we were to accept your proposal, we think we would lose money on that deal, and that would be a net reduction in pay for our ambulance shift personnel. And so, I guess
And
I'll
why,
just.
why do you think that would be a reduction? Just help me so I can.
Because they're getting a set amount without regards to the number of shifts that they work. And we did the math, and to make it work, we needed $50 a shift to break even. At $25 a shift, we were losing money. That was our own rough calculations. And so I may need to see some of your backup data to show where you in fact have taken account of us giving up that standardized, assignment pay in lieu of the $25 per shift, because I'm pretty confident that a lot of our people are losing money on that deal. So,
Okay, we'll calculate.
looking at ours, we have already TA'd on a duration proposal that knocks the year 2019 off. So can we just take that 7.8 million off the table?
Well, we could, but your wage proposal after we TA'd included that extra year. So, and I know that we.
Well, the wage proposal was the one that we made before we signed off on the duration article, and I've given you a new wage proposal that takes off that year.
Okay, and that was this morning. So
Right.
we can definitely do that.
So
And
that
I
7.8
understand that.
just goes away?
It should, if the cost will of course go down because we're not gonna include that year 5 ultimately. But that was on your initial proposals, that's what it
Yeah.
was, and we wanted to show you that that's what it would cost. We can redo that to
Yeah.
show you on the new one. I didn't want to, you hadn't agreed to, I know that we agreed on that duration proposal, but we also both agreed that we still had to negotiate the wage proposal, and there was still a year outstanding past the duration. So I didn't want to automatically take that off without, of course, your agreement. So that was the reason that we costed it that way, because
Okay,
that's the way the proposal
I'm just making a
stood.
point that right away, we
Absolutely.
can eliminate 7.8 mil.
And that's why I made a point to say that this was costed as of yesterday, because
Yeah.
obviously, there's a lot of proposals that you've sent over to me today that I haven't looked at thoroughly, but I've browsed through, and like, for instance, the meal, I believe we may, you're gonna leave the meal status quo, you've taken off a year on the wages.
Not the meals.
I mean, excuse
We
me,
both
the
agreed to an
uniform.
increase, yeah,
Yeah,
so
the
that knocks that
uniform.
off, and that's another 600,000.
So, yeah, absolutely. After this morning, we will work, we'll work and as soon as we can give you the costing. Now that we have all the costing information and the formula, that we know what formulas to use, it shouldn't take that,
Yeah.
a week.
And, I understand your desire to do this, but these just seem like funny numbers to me. There are things that number one, just looking at where we started and according to y'all, and where we are right now according to y'all, we're down from 33 to 23. As we've just covered, we've knocked another 8 or so off. So, and
Only from this morning. We didn't have
Right.
that info this morning.
And I think that your information for the cost of your own proposals is inaccurate, because it at the very least, it doesn't count how much you're gonna save from overtime. And I don't believe you made that proposal without thinking you would save overtime. And it doesn't account for the loss of what we're trading the ambulance shift pay for. So, I think that your number in terms of total increase in your budget is actually greatly inflated. In other words, you've inflated our numbers and you've inflated yours as well.
No,
And I'm just wondering, what's the purpose of this exercise? Because, I've been asking you for economic information. You've made 2 economic proposals now without, providing us any economic information. And now you provide this, and I can look at it, just without giving it any study at all and glance and see that it's inaccurate. And you took time away from giving us economic data that we've been asking for a number of weeks now, and did this. And it just seems like,
I don't
how
believe
long
that-
ago do we ask you what was the cost of your, I asked you weeks ago, how much money are you saving from your overtime proposals? And you have yet to prepare that for me. But your finance department spent 12 hours putting this data together, you know, and I mean, what's the purpose?
And you have to remember,
Wait, Rox, let me finish.
Craig,
What's the purpose?
You're misstating the questions on the overtime issue. Our overtime proposal as it stood before changed the formulas, changed everything, okay? So we were working on that. Since we were there, we just recently put a proposal on there that said, you know what, we're not gonna touch your formulas, we're not gonna mess with that. The thing the issue we're really looking at is a schedule. So as soon as we made that new proposal and we understood where we went, then we could go to our staff with the resources and say, this is, you know, and you brought up that question that day. I had already posed that question to the staff that particular day, because that's when I had the authority to make that counter proposal. So we working on it. So the stuff that we were working on before is irrelevant now because the proposal has changed. So I just want to clarify that, because you're making it sound like I'm not giving you what you need.
Well,
and I feel like I have been trying my hardest to give you everything that you need.
Don't take this personal. I'm not attacking you personally.
I understand that.
But I told you last week when you made your new overtime proposal that I thought it would reduce the pay of firefighters right now by about $3,000 per firefighter per year. And if that's true, that's over $1 million that would be lost to firefighters, and which means that your current day proposal of, according to your figures, of 3.5, $1 million comes right off the top of that.
Well, your overtime and base salary are two different things.
And that's per year. So
you're entitled to base salary.
I know, but see, what I'm saying is if
Overtime's
I'm
not
right.
guaranteed unless it's just cycle overtime.
If
We're
I'm-
talking about unscheduled overtime.
I know. And firefighters on average are working, what, a shift per cycle overtime?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay. You know, if in fact we're losing $1 million a year over a course of a 4-year contract, that's $4 million. Now, that number may be wildly off, but that's our initial concern, is that it's not wildly off, and that's why I asked for that information. But if that's true, then your 3.5 number becomes a negative number, and you're actually paying us less. I know you're shaking your head no, and the fire department budget may go up because you're adding 40 positions, or 42.
Right, and that's gonna cut on your overtime too. You're gonna seek money for that too?
No, you know, if that happens, then I think that's great, because that's the legitimate way to reduce your
Right,
overtime
and what
budget,
we're
is to
trying
add
to
more
do
personnel. I
is
think
have
that's great.
overtime be legitimate and for time that's over what you have actually worked.
I know.
And that's the way, you know, that's what we're looking to do. We're not looking to punish anybody. We're not saying, no, you're not entitled to it. We're not changing the formulas. The change shouldn't be as significant as you believe that it is. If you're coming up with those numbers, I'd like to know how you're coming up with those numbers, because I don't know how to do that. You know, I'm not the expert on that. I leave it to the people with the budget and payroll, et cetera.
I did quick and dirty math. You know, I just looked at your average firefighter, and they're losing a shift of unscheduled overtime per cycle, and there are, I forget, about 13 work cycles a year, and you know, they're losing their overtime entitlement for it, and that's, you know, I just did the math.
No, in that math, I know that you're kind of doing generalities. We're actually looking at real time, real salaries, real work. So that's what we're.
I hear you, Roxy, and I know you're going to hear this harshly, but I asked about that a week ago. I still don't have it, but I hear that your department spent 12 hours putting this together. I would rather have had that, because that's more important to me
This
right now.
department's different from the other department. That work has been done simultaneously, Okay, so just because we're focusing on one thing, and I explained that to you yesterday, when we were meeting between, when I just visited with you about what we were gonna do, we're working on it simultaneously. This was a lot easier because we have formulas, we can get this information a lot more, quicker than we can when we have to manually pull, the information that would help us get those overtime calculations that you want, and we're trying to be as accurate as possible. We're using the general accounting standards, we're using the budgetary process that we're supposed to use here at the city, so there's a lot involved. We just don't do dirty math over here, okay?
And I'm not asking you to. I mean, the reason that I asked for the information is because my dirty math worries me, and I gotta know what that is, because I can't ask the firefighters to buy a pig in a poke. I also wanna point out with regards to this, you know, you're looking at this in a vacuum. And by that I mean simply that if we had no contract, the city would provide pay raises every year, just as they provide to other departments. And
Which are not guaranteed every year, if you didn't have a contract.
they are. That's right. You're absolutely right. But I'm not aware of any city departments where they've actually decreased wages. I mean, maybe they've eliminated positions, but have you decreased wages for the people that are not protected by a contract?
I can't answer it. Not since I've been here, but I don't know. I don't know.
And I
the
doubt that's
entire
gonna
picture.
happen. And in fact, everybody, I think, except firefighters, got a wage increase at the start of this fiscal year, right?
Yeah, probably.
And-
We did offer to give it.
You did. All we had to do was relinquish our contract. But, and truthfully, we were unwilling to do that, went to court to stop that. But, you know, the thing is, so that's a cost savings to you. I mean, your last economic proposal, you know, we've asked to make up that money, and so far y'all have said no. And the longer these negotiations go on, the more we lose, and so that's a negative that ought to come off of our total, you know? But in the end analysis, it's all just kind of funny money, because, you know, I don't believe that if you've got a $49.7 million budget, that our proposal, well, I know we're down to about 16 or 17 mil now, and that's over a 4-year period, so that's about 4 mil a year. And so, you know, that doesn't sound real unreasonable to me, and yet we still know that we have more room to go, and that's gonna drop. So I'm just, and then all of your other departments are gonna go up, and I bet that we will find that what we're asking for, we're not gonna go up that much more than other departments. I certainly believe that's true with regards to the police department. I know for a fact that they've been getting bigger raises than we've been getting the past several years as a result of their contract. So I don't want to get us off on a bad foot. I appreciate the hard work that you've been doing, but I do want to point out that, you know, I just don't think that this is a valuable use of our time.
Well, I think it
In
is.
the end analysis, I know that you have to know how much this is going to cost you.
When the end of analysis, this is a very critical issue that we have to look at. This isn't funny money. This is taxpayer money that we're messing with. It's not funny money.
It's not. It's not funny money. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And we're taxpayers too. Some of our folks may not live in the city, but many of them do. We're taxpayers too. We, despite what you may think, we care very much about the taxpayers.
One of the things.
And I'm not gonna say that we take a second seat to y'all in terms of trying to protect them.
Well, one of the other things that we have to look at, and the costing is very critical, is where's the money gonna come from? You know, are we gonna, if you're asking us to look and find the additional money within the department, we will definitely do that. You know, I don't know where this new money is gonna come from. We have a lot of different priorities in the city. A firefighter and public safety are priorities, but they're different, you know, they're ranked in different orders in different days. They're all priorities. And we do have a budget constraint. Unfortunately, our sales tax has been lagging lately, so we're having to deal with those issues. The economy here in Corpus Christi is, with the Eagle Ford Shell, you know, all the oil companies are pulling out. It's affecting the sales tax. It's affecting tax bases. It affects the global budget. And so we're having to look, and we're having to, number one, be fiscally responsible. Number two, take care of our firefighters and make sure that they have a job next year. We don't want to get rid of, we don't want to have to get rid of positions if it ever came down to it, okay?
No, and let me just say, we're deeply appreciative of the fact that although you didn't want to talk about staffing at the table, made that pretty clear, you have added 42 positions to the fire department. A lot of the problems that you perceive right now are going to be greatly ameliorated by that simple fact that you have chosen on your own accord to add staffing to the fire department. I understand that when the city manager came in, he inherited a budget deficit and that he had to deal with it. And I understand that a lot of departments had to take a hit, and certainly the fire department hasn't added positions for the last couple of years. But be that as it may, we still got a situation in which we need to bargain for pay and benefits and other working conditions. And I think that as we get closer to the end game, that's when these kinds of figures can be helpful. But simply keeping a running tab on costs, especially when it takes as much time as it does, and I can look at it and start poking holes in it just from glancing at it, I just don't think it's very valuable. I mean, I really want us to focus on proposals. To that end,
we
I've
need to
given
know
you.
where the cost and where the money's going to come from. We can't just say yes. We agree everybody needs a raise, but what can we do within the city's budget, within our responsibility? We have to look at that.
And
it's not free.
No, it's not free, and it's a buzzsaw that you're in between. Because on the one hand, you've got budgetary constraints, and Corpus Christi is not a wealthy city. On the other hand, according to the data that we've provided to you, you know that you're lagging behind comparable fire departments. And whereas you made a commitment to your police department to pay them at the median of a group of 24 cities, fire department is lagging further and further behind that median.
Are you talking about the fire department or the police department? Because we never agreed to those 24 cities. Those 24 cities you have pulled from the police contract.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I understand that. But I'm just using that as a point of comparison. And I'm saying that, whereas you made a commitment to your police that with regards to those 24 cities, you're going to shoot for the median. And if I'm misspeaking a little bit, I apologize. I'm not an expert on the police contract. But you didn't make that commitment to the fire department. And what we're seeing is police are getting higher raises. Fire department is falling further and further below the median of those same 24 cities. And you may or may not feel like those are, I'll be interested to hear why you think that those are good comparators for police but not fire, but I'm sure you may do that. I'm told that happened in the last contract. And, but at the same time, we're falling further and further behind, and for that reason, you become to some extent a training ground for other fire departments. That firefighters come and get in here, and then when they can, they leave and go to other fire departments, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, wherever they can get on, because they can get paid better. And
Do you have information that that's a problem in this particular department?
I can get information like that. I do know anecdotally of several firefighters that have left.
Because they got training here and they went to a better community?
Yeah, I assume that that's why you made the proposal that firefighters, which we accepted by the way, that firefighters, if they leave within the first, I forget what it is, 2 years, that they'll have to repay you their training costs because you got tired of paying to train them only to see them jump to other fire departments. And so, you realize that there's a problem there, but your approach is to use the stick as opposed to the carrot.
Well, yeah,
and a stick is a good thing. We've already agreed to the stick.
Right.
Now we're asking for a little bit of carrot.
But I think that you're misinterpreting what we're trying to prevent. I don't know that it's a rampant problem here in Corpus Christi. And I'll look and see what information I can provide you about the people who have our retention on those cadets. I don't think that we will see much of them leaving. We have, as you know, a lot of our force is, a lot of firefighter 2 EMSs are 20 plus years.
I know. And that's what my You know, the information you gave me yesterday, what it shows is that there is a big gap. You've got an aging fire department, is what it looks like to me. A bunch of people that are topped out. Those people are gonna start retiring, and you're gonna have to add a whole bunch of new people. I mean,
And we're working on that.
I
That's an
think of
ongoing-
your last class that you hired, and this has been, I forget what it was. I don't wanna speak off the top of my head. I can talk to my team, they know this information. You've already lost a lot of the people you hired in your last class, I believe.
Get that data.
That was a safer grant class too.
So,
I don't know,
Yeah, it was.
but
well, and one of the other things that I want you to also look at is that we cannot look at the fire department is obviously a priority, and that's why we're here at the table collectively bargaining with you. But you also have to remember that we have to, you know, with our budget and with the entire city, we have to look at the equity amongst the entire city, and I'll get you information on that, as to how firefighter, base salaries as they stand right now on average, compared to the rest of the city. So we'll be looking at that, and I'll provide that data, because I think that's
When-
important to look at.
And when you provide that, I want you to provide it for the police, and I want you to provide it for the city administration, the city manager, and the assistant city managers. I wanna know, you know,
Well-
what is the comparables? I wanna look at the
So-
whole, if you look at all the employees, you're gonna look at all the employees, okay? That
But in
includes
this
you
comparable, are you
and
using the
Susan
fire chief
and
and all
everybody
the
else.
assistant chiefs and the deputy chief salary in your comparables?
I'm sorry, what now?
Are you using the administration of the fire department in your comparables as well then? Because we can include those in there. If we include them in the general city, we're gonna include
We're including
the deputy
everything.
chief, the fire chief, the assistant chiefs, and all those managerial salaries into that.
If you wanna do that, that's fine.
Well, I'm just asking because what we're
If you
looking
wanna
at
do
is the
that,
bargaining unit.
But I would point out that if you're talking about assistant chiefs, deputy chief, and fire chief, we don't set those by contract. You set them. If they're inflated, that's on you, not us. All I'm saying is, you wanna compare us to the entire city, that's fine, you do that. I wanna be compared to the police, and I wanna be compared to the administration. Because I don't think we're out of line with either of those groups. In fact, I think we're lagging behind both of those groups. And fair is fair. If you're gonna say that we should be compared to the line city employees who don't have bargaining rights, then you should too. And so should the police, and so should everybody. But that's only one factor. Another factor.
That's right, it's one factor.
That's
There are
right.
a lot of factors we have to look at.
That's right, and when you set the city manager's salary, for example, you look not only at, is it fair vis-a-vis line employees, but you look at how much money you have to pay to attract good, talented city manager, and you've got one, okay? But at the same point in time, you gotta make that same comparison with regards to the firefighters, because if other cities are paying more, and the firefighters can get jobs and leave here for those other cities, then that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna follow the money. And at the end of the day, what's more likely to keep them here? A competitive firefighter salary, or a salary that's equivalent to other positions that aren't comparable? I mean, we haven't talked about this at all, but, you know, and I think the studies are out there, and if you want me to find them, I will. Firefighters trade years off of their lives to fulfill the role of a firefighter. I think the last statistic
By choice, they make that choice.
They make that choice, but they lose sometimes. I think the average is 10 years off their lives by serving the city as a firefighter. So I don't know how many different occupations can say that, but that's what they do. And so I stand second to none in my admiration of firefighters. I admire all city employees, by the way. I'm not one of those that thinks that all city employees are bureaucrats that don't earn their pay. I think that's, well, I can't say enough bad about that type of attitude. I admire city employees, but firefighters do a very difficult and dangerous job. And I think that they should be compensated in accordance with what other cities of comparable size and characteristics pay their firefighters. And I don't think that's asking too much. And
But
at the
if
same
you're just
time,
basing it on that one factor, we can't just isolate
No,
that one factor.
I agree.
We have a lot of other things, other factors that affect that. And that's what we're trying to do in our analysis, to make a fair analysis and include all those different factors.
I know, and bargaining is great, because obviously we're gonna focus on what other firefighters are paid by their cities. You're gonna focus on affordability, and we're concerned about that. I'm being honest with you. We
Right,
are concerned about that.
We are too. We're not ignoring the issue. And we do appreciate the information that you have provided to us, even though a lot of it was incomplete because y'all didn't have the ability. I don't know why it was incomplete. I think that y'all didn't have the ability to get that information, et cetera. So, but we are taking it into consideration. But when we look at it, we can't just look at it, like you said, in a vacuum. We can't look at one and say, hey, well, they have the highest base pay in this 24 cities, so we want that high base pay. And then another city has the high certification pay, so we want that high certification pay. You have to look across the board, because a lot of those, just as here in Corpus Christi, maybe there wasn't a base wage increase, but there were added ad pay, there increase in ad pays, or some other kind of economic incentive that was built into that contract at that time. So that's what we're working on.
No, I agree, total
and-
compensation.
Right, so
Total
that's what we're
compensation
looking
has to be
at.
looked at. And.
So I just
and-
wanna make sure that we're both looking, if you ask to include the administration, we're gonna have to do the same analysis on the fire as well. And so it we can't just do firefighters average and then do everybody and include management, because the management tier of the city is much different than, me who does the work, and the firefighters. It's just a different level, their management level.
I understand that, but if it's fair to compare firefighters to the rest of city employees, why isn't it fair to compare police and city management to the rest of the city employees?
Oh, can we take a break, please?
Sure.
Sorry about that, it's a contract.
All right.
Ready to stop beating this dead horse?
That's a good idea. Yeah,
We'll admit this
I am.
bit.
I think I just want to make, on those 24 cities, are you looking to include?
Looking to include Austin's new contract. Finish that one.
When is that coming out?
The firefighters voted on it this past week and approved it.
thanks.
City Council is approving it. It's gonna be held up a little bit because Department of Justice has to approve it too.
Oh, that's right, they're involved in that.
But, I'm pretty confident they will, because we've been in negotiations with them for quite some time.
Okay. Well, we're
Then
gonna.
the federal court has to approve it.
Oh,
And we
that's
don't
right.
negotiate with them.
Is that like a consent decree kind of deal?
It's a consent decree.
For minorities, females?
It was African American, Hispanic, underrepresentation, and, so.
Hopefully they're making improvements.
They really are. Actually, even before DOJ intervened, the last class was the best they'd ever had in terms of, out of the 100 applicants, I think 12 were African American and something like 25 were Hispanic, and 12 were women. And so I think they are making great strides. Okay. Let's talk about, do you want me to talk about our proposal? or-
Yeah, that's the next thing we have going.
Okay. Let me just start with Article 13, health insurance. I know you and I have spoken a bit. I think we're very close on that, on the basis of our last proposal.
Is that one of these?
We gave you that proposal, I think, at the end last week on the 14th. It's not one of those that I showed today. We've given you a new proposal on Article 14, and I want to go over that real quick. This is one where I think we should also be very close to being able to TA it. We have agreed to maintain the status quo in the uniform allowance at $67.50.
Okay.
Roxy, I want to point out on section 1F, that last phrase, subject to the requirements of this agreement, you had put, I think, in a proposal, at his discretion. And I pointed out the last time we talked about it, which has been some time ago, that
Right.
the contract says subject to the requirements of this agreement, and you indicated you probably could go with that. But I didn't want our putting it in green to indicate that that's not something you may want to look at. In other
Okay.
words, compare it to your last proposal.
Okay, on F.
Similarly, in subsection G, your last proposal eliminated that EMS in front of certification. And we had pointed out to you that, all the current T-shirts
Yeah, I
have
didn't,
EMS.
I
and you-
agreed with that, that's right.
So, I didn't want you to feel like by putting that in green, we were trying to mislead you.
Okay,
Okay, look at those issues if you want, but I do think that you did agree that those were appropriate. We're already in agreement on mileage allowance. We've already agreed on meals, relief, reassignment from fire prevention. Y'all, section 6 and 7, y'all have simply never responded on those.
okay,
These are just status quo, and I've listed the source. Now, in this latest proposal in section 7, we've made changes, but we think these changes are designed to help the city.
okay,
We have in subsection 7B as in boy, we've lowered that from 2 to 1. And in subsection C, we said that if a firefighter 1 is not eligible to be assigned to an ambulance, that they cannot be permanently assigned to EMS stations. That's to give you more flexibility to put people in the stations who can perform the EMS duties.
okay.
Okay, so that is a change from current contract language, but it's not designed, we think it's designed to help you, okay? Action outside the city limits, section 8, we've already agreed upon. Section 9, toxicology reports, you've never responded to that, but it's just straight out of the
Yeah.
contract.
I don't know
Section
that there's
10,
any issue with that.
I don't
Just
think
need to
so.
look at it.
Section 10, we've already agreed on that language. Section 11, again, it's not that y'all have rejected it, you just never responded. But, so we've got 3 sections that haven't been agreed to, but everything else, I think,
Okay.
is agreed upon. So I just
That
think we're
looks
very
pretty
close.
Can I ask you something about section 11 real quick on the copies of the agreement?
Mm-hmm.
With the internet and electronic documents being available, would there be any issue with, do they all have to be paper, or can we make them,
Let me talk to my.
available electronically? I just want y'all to have that discussion, see,
Yeah.
it does, of course, affect cost, but that's already in the contract.
No.
But it could be a lot more easy for someone to pull it up. I think it's automatically on the fire department, website. I think it's on the city website. We could email it to each of the firefighters, so they have a copy, they can save a PDF copy. I don't
Everybody
know.
has a home email address, Ron.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, let me
They
talk
at
to
least
my.
have a city email for sure.
Yeah, let me talk to my team about it and get back to you on that. But certainly, if you want to make that as a counter proposal.
Okay, yeah, we may do something to include electronic versions or something like that.
Maybe just have a paper copy, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, and I haven't talked to my team.
No, I
Always
understand.
dangerous. Maybe just have a paper copy in every station and send it to everybody electronically.
Something like
Something like that, and give the union X numbers of paper copies or something like that.
Okay,
But anyway, so those two, it would be really nice to get those in the can.
okay.
If we can.
Now, this one we can definitely work on today. With the health one, I need to, Steve unfortunately is who's the benefits manager and does all the health insurances, at the city council meeting today. There's supposed to be a meeting that had occurred, I just need to confirm whether it did or not. So we may or may not be able to take, but I will tell you, we're very, very close, and it just had to, be approved, basically.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, good, that's great to hear. The next group of proposals is Article 6 and 35. Let's look at Article 6 first. Get it on my screen. We're very close. The reason I crossed out chapter 143 and in that first sentence there is because, this agreement exists really only by virtue of chapter 174. It does, I mean, chapter 143 is the Civil Service Act, and there's nothing in 143 about the collective bargain.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's the reason.
I
It's
see.
not intended as a substantive change. The elimination of the last phrase is also not intended as a subsequent, as a substantive change. I just think that that's kind of misleading. I mean, you're saying the city will continue to retain, regardless of frequency of exercise, rights to except as restricted by this agreement and applicable law, period. And when you say and such rights are not waived or restricted, then that calls into question the
Right.
except as restricted by this
Okay.
agreement and applicable law.
Okay.
And which is why I crossed out those words there and I added except as qualified by this agreement and applicable law in the next thing to make sure that we're not saying that these rights exist, because we've already had all those conversations and arguments and then if we go down to the list of bullets, you said to exercise the right of assignment, including but not limited to the allocation and, so I just put,
To assign and allocate.
yeah, to assign and allocate. I think that covers the waterfront in a bit fewer words. It just sounded like to exercise the right of assignment, including the right to assign, It's
Okay.
like, in item 11, I only crossed out transfer and assign because assignment is covered by 6.
Okay.
And transfers are covered by 8 and 9.
Okay.
Okay? In item 13, I just changed employees to firefighters. That's one of the defined terms. In item 18, I crossed out selection. I think that to the extent it's not controlled by the agreement, that selection is controlled completely by the Civil Service Act. And so, it just seemed misleading to me. You don't, for your civilians, I guess you have selection rights, but certainly not for sworn firefighters. And then 21, to use non-sworn personnel in a manner allowed by the CSA, which is a defined term, and any other applicable law. And that's in accordance with our discussion of yesterday, and I want to point out in conjunction with that, we're withdrawing our proposal on Article 8.
Okay.
And so I've sent you a TA that just has all of 8 crossed out. But that's based on the understanding yesterday that we could grieve a violation of management rights if we felt like you tried to use somebody to do something that the CSA requires to use sworn personnel. The last sentence that we've added, I think it is true. I think your first sentence there, retain management rights and authority is not subject to challenge to the grievance procedure. I think that that's true. But we get a question, and this happens all the time. A typical grievance is we say, well, you violated Article 10, Section 2. You say, no, we didn't. We exercised retain management right number 14. And so then we say, well, we think you did violate Article 10, Section 2, and so we want to arbitrate this grievance. And you say, no, we don't have to. Look, it says that our exercise of retained management rights, and we're saying, but that's not legitimate exercise of retained management right. And so how do we resolve that? And that's what I've said. That question can go to the arbitrator for resolution. That's really kind of what we're doing now.
Okay.
It's like the grievance that y'all have talked to us a lot about the EMS 2s wanting to voluntarily demote. We said, well, that's covered by this contract. We said, no, it's not. We have a management right to do that, but we arbitrated it. Same thing. We just don't want to have to get the court to compel arbitration every time we think you violated some other provision and you're saying, no, it's a retained management right. Okay? And then I put a note at the bottom that, we see this as part and parcel of a larger agreement, and that is the Article 35 as well, prevailing rights, maintenance, and standards. So that's 6, and let's go to 35 then. the maintenance of standards language that I've got in there is essentially the maintenance of standards language that's in the current contract. I know that y'all have shown a lot of, or expressed a lot of angst about keeping that in the contract. But I want to point out to you that we have agreed to some pretty big changes in management rights. We have agreed to inclusion for the first time of a complete agreement clause. And the language that I have in the complete agreement clause is from the police contract. But I've added a phrase to it. And you remember there's a couple of things where we said, well, we might reopen negotiations on this or that. So I didn't want the complete agreement clause to be conflicting with those specific obligations. So that's the only change there. But I would ask you to think really hard. I have heard, and our team has heard, the city's concerns about a plethora of maintenance of standards grievances. I don't think it is very helpful to our, I think there's a lot of reasons that has happened. I think that the association is prepared to be more circumspect in its use of maintenance of standards, but it is such an important right, has existed for 40 years, and to take it away while at the same time adding complete agreement and beefing up management rights is, we really think, a deal breaker. So,
How do you think we're beefing up management rights?
you have just more explicitly detailed a lot of specific things.
That we already had?
I think so.
Okay. So we're not really beefing it up, we're just making it clear what we have. We're not beefing it, we're not adding anything.
This gets us back to an argument we already had, and I don't
Right.
want to have it again.
Right.
I really don't think you're making it more clear. I think you're muddying the water by the addition of all that stuff, because as I've told you, many of the 21 bullet points are places where I think they're already greatly circumscribed by existing law. So
Yeah.
I think to some extent we could have a real argument about whether you're clarifying or obfuscating. But we don't have to have that. You asked for the language, we gave it to you.
Right.
You wanted it for a reason. You
So-
expressed that reason at the table.
So, okay, now the maintenance of standards, we kind of don't, it's this generalized idea of rights and privileges that the firefighters feel that they're entitled to. How does a maintenance of standards, which was the old prevailing rights clause, not muddy up the water that the contract is supposed to clarify, the full agreement? Because when we collectively bargain issues that we're required to collectively bargain. There's some that we agree, okay, there's permissive subjects, yes, we're gonna agree with these big, bargain on these and ultimately agree because they're very important to the firefighters as well as the city. So this is the agreement. There's four corners. How does the maintenance of standards not muddy this up and create some sort of open? It says, okay, we may have not bargained, but you know what, we are entitled to that right, even though we haven't collectively bargained on it.
Well,
And whether it is even mandatory or permissive.
number one, it is never accurate to say that when you have a collective bargaining agreement, the entirety of the agreement is within the four corners of the document. I know that that's an idea from contract law generally, but in the area of collective bargaining agreements, at least as early as 1960, the U.S. Supreme Court said that a collective bargaining agreement is never just the language of the agreement itself. That the practices of the parties, etc., are important. And maintenance of standards really protects those areas. It needs to be used judiciously, okay? And you would argue, well, the union hasn't used it judiciously, therefore we want to just lop it off. And we're just going to, how's the old expression go? Mitch McConnell, we're going to root out Obamacare, or cheek and jowl, or whatever it is. And I don't think that that's a good solution. I think that we could argue all day and never come to agreement on why there's been a plethora of maintenance and standards grievances. But I think to the extent that we misuse maintenance and standards, that we'll lose grievances and we'll pay for them and we'll learn from that. And I see that as an issue that will resolve itself over time. I don't think you throw out the baby with the bathwater just because we may be on a learning curve with regards to that. You have a maintenance and standards provision in your police contract. And I think, I'm willing to have whatever discussion you want. I'm willing to put in a complete agreement clause, which we've never had. I mean, 4 years contract, no complete. You want it, I'll give it to you, and that's an important thing. It will add to your ability to make the arguments that you want to make, especially with regards to management rights. But at the same time, maintenance and standards is critical to the association because we simply don't have the time or the ability to talk about some of the important things that exist right now.
Now, when you're talking about maintenance standards, are y'all focusing on past practices?
Well, yes, we really are. And past practices.
So aren't those already protected by whether it be arbitration law or, common law or case law, et cetera?
If we had never had a maintenance and standards provision to begin with, that might be true. But when you have a maintenance and standards and then you take it out, if you don't think, if you think that I don't realize for a moment, that you'll throw that in my face every arbitration we ever have from now on, then you don't respect me very much. And that's a problem. Maintenance and standards needs to be in there to indicate, especially with the complete agreement clause, it needs to be in there to indicate that important, practices that exist in the thing. Now, is a TV a good example? No, probably not. Are we going to file a grievance because you took a TV out of the station or you didn't fix it when it broke? No. But really important stuff, that maybe we can't protect within the four corners of the contract. We need to have some ability to reach. Most of the maintenance and standards grievances that we have filed have also cited other items in the contract. And I would think that would continue to be the majority of cases, if not the great majority. I'm usually not comfortable with just a flat out bare maintenance and standards. But I've done them before, and in certain cases it's important. But I'm just asking the city, you've made significant strides that you've asked for in this agreement. We've tightened up the grievance procedure, the disciplinary procedure. We have added a lot of stuff to the management rights. We can argue about what that really means. We've given you a complete agreement clause. I think that asking for the maintenance and standards in return for all of that is not a lot. And I promise you it's very, very important to the firefighters.
Okay.
Let's see. Now we're talking about Article 10.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, it's 20 to 1. If y'all decide you want to break for lunch.
I think we can go ahead and keep going, if you don't
Okay.
mind, just so we can get through these.
Okay. Article 10. I put that in green, and I realize that you switched, you've had a subsection A up there, but I want to point out to you that what I did was I added section 143.021. So if you look at the reopener, we acknowledge and agree that the city's agreeing this section does not waive the city's right under Texas Local Government 143.021 to establish by ordinance and the number of positions within those classifications. So, and by the way, I'll send you a definitions thing today. I've added a definition of classification
Okay.
to indicate rank.
Okay.
Okay. So I think those things are in agreement, as is section 2A. I have changed our subsection 2B. I've just made it 3.5% raises.
Okay.
each of those 3 years and kept the signing bonus. We're really just kind of sitting on that, waiting for some of this information.
I understand.
So, we don't know what you're gonna do on supplemental page yet. We don't know what you're gonna do in some of these other areas, and for that reason, you know, there's not a lot we can do.
Okay.
I did put a note there, we still have that dispute about deputy and assistant chiefs. Depending on how we resolve that, we may wanna add assistant chief classification to this.
Oh, on the appointment?
Yeah.
et cetera? Okay.
Then let's see. The next one is Article 12. We've agreed to some of your language changes there. We are asking still for the status quo with regards to the payment of overtime. Again, the same thing I said with regards to, you know, we gotta know the whole economic package before, how much, you know,
Okay.
overtime savings you have is.
So we'll start focusing on the base and the supplemental pays. We'll
Mhm.
get you all that information.
And then that takes us to Article 27. You know, Roxy, I'm working really hard to try and find middle ground. We're having a lot of trouble with one thing. Y'all are worried about us talking to city council, and we're worried about being totally prohibited from doing that. And that's what this reflects. I do want to say this, and I hope y'all think about this, and that is that with the impasse procedure in place, you know, really who we talk to at this point is not as important. It's not as important to us, but it's not as important to you either. Because at the end of the day, if you don't agree or we don't reach agreement, you know, one of us has to be the more reasonable, and that party is going to win that dispute. I'm very hopeful that we won't have to use that impasse procedure very often. Just the way it's set up, I think discourages us from wanting to go to interest arbitration because, you know, I think I'm more reasonable, but maybe a neutral won't. So, you know, I think that's, and I felt like I had to put a thing away. We're not waiving First Amendment rights of firefighters who are
We
not.
talked about that.
Yeah, you know, I just think that, you know, number one, I'm not sure that we could control them even if we agreed to control them. I mean, that's my experience with, you know, a membership organization that includes 400 people. And let me tell you something else. If you don't think you can keep secrets in a group of 400 people, everything I ever said in a union meeting that was closed to the public, I said, I realize this will be out before I, you know, walk through the door. And it usually is.
Yeah.
And I've also added, you know, and this last sentence may be, you know, is that if a party feels like another party's violating this, number one, I hope that we'll talk to each other, okay? What happened last time, I hope will never happen again. And by that, I mean just that, you know, the parties kind of stopped communicating there at the table that day. But if you feel like that we're violating it, then take us to court and seek temporary relief. That would be the remedy as opposed to just unilaterally discontinuing. I don't, you know, we lost a lot of time, and I think we're both trying to avoid that kind of thing in the future. So that's really what I'm trying to do at that point. Okay.
Can I just make a comment on
Sure.
one of the changes? And I'll give you a little bit of reasoning for why we even proposed that to begin with. On the extending the not talking to council and, you know, about negotiation items, issues on the table throughout the end of the arbitration, you know, through that impasse procedure. Because the reasoning is if we were to get into that impasse procedure, there's a lot of different opportunities to not only mediate, but to maybe stop and negotiate a little bit and come to an agreement once we go through the process. The process has been tailored so that it can narrow down the issue specifically, and there may be a point at some time when they're so narrow, we're like, you know what, we're very close, let's just negotiate this out. At that point, you know, we still look to the fire union and the city council for direction and authority to be able to do that stuff. So what I didn't want that to be discouraged. I didn't want that kind of negotiation to be discouraged throughout the impasse procedure if that's what happened. And that was the reason that we had thought that it would be, it would maintain that integrity longer and in a better way if we extended it up to the end of that impasse procedure. Because I didn't want any kind of that politicking to affect the ability of us to, you know, sit down and actually negotiate between a mediation and a fact finder, or even between a fact finding and an arbitration outside the procedure. You know, we can always say, hey, let's agree to stop the procedure. Let's go sit down for a couple of days, hash this out, and sign an agreement, kind of deal. And that's my main concern. I don't want to.
I hear that, you know, and I, you know, don't want our negotiations here to get bogged down on this provision. You know, to some extent, I'm really concerned about, you know, the litigation that happened last time, trying to avoid that. This whole lawsuit was outside my experience, and I've been doing this a long time. I was really pretty surprised. But, you know, it's been my experience, I mean, forget Corpus, just, it's common when only one side is providing, I mean, the council really is the decision-making body. And we have agreed that we're not gonna bargain with the council members, ever. And we have agreed, and we limited ourselves here to making factual presentations. It is my experience, without pointing to Corpus, that oftentimes the city councils, if they get information only from one side, don't get all of the correct information. And I don't, you know, so to say that, I don't like that word integrity of the bargaining process, because, you know, we've agreed to bargain at the table. And the way we're conducting these negotiations is the way that we're going to conduct negotiations in the future. So, but at the same time, you know, if the council gets misinformation, you don't want to tie your hands in terms of being able to present facts. And that's all we're seeking. That literally is all we're seeking,
Okay.
is not to tie our hands.
Okay, I think I have an idea that can bridge that gap.
Okay. I would welcome that. I think the only other one that we've given you so far is 33?
33 is
Okay.
What was that, John?
33, you know, let's focus on the good stuff first. There's a lot of green in there. We've accepted your language changes, and I realize you accepted some of our language. I'm not claiming all the credit for us. For all that stuff. What we've got is still a disagreement about what I call the grandfather rights of certain firefighters. And I've tried to capture the grandfather rights that currently exist, with one exception. Okay? And that is, what we're asking you to consider is, you know, we had taken a grievance to arbitration that said that after 5 years of continuous ambulance service, a firefighter 2 EMS could voluntarily demote. And you said, we don't agree that that's required by the contract, and you won that. At the same time, we settled a grievance for the firefighter 1s, such that a firefighter 1 who's been 8 years can't be required to continue your ambulance duty. So what we've done is we've asked you to consider, and this is section B3 and section C3, section 1 B3 and 1 C3, letting them voluntarily demote after 8 as opposed to 5 years of continuous service to firefighter 1. But if you go down to section 5, we have increased the amount of time that a firefighter 1 from 8 under the current agreement to 10. So the idea is, and recall the change with the station assignments, the idea there is to increase your flexibility in terms of what I see as an immediate staffing crisis. It's an immediate staffing crisis only because, you know, our complement is down. When these 42 people get on board and get trained, especially, I think there are like 5 or 6 who are already paramedics, there's going to be some immediate relief of that situation. But I realize that training is going to take time, that the question becomes, what do we do this next year, year and a half, as those people come on board? And so we're trying to meet that concern to make sure that you have the staffing. But I sent you information about EMS last night. I know you probably haven't had a chance to review it.
I briefly reviewed it.
But I do want to point out that, you know, we're not really trying to posture on our side, and I'm not really trying to blow smoke at you. We really do have a problem, a burnout problem, you know, with regards to staffing on the ambulance. It's probably one of the biggest concerns among line firefighters right now is, you know, being able to get some relief off of the box. And I've thought real hard about how to communicate this. I mean, the articles about Austin EMS, and I've, you know, had some experience with them. You know, I've done some litigation for them and helped negotiate their contract. But
does that EMS negotiate a collective bargaining contract?
they have a meet and confer contract. The Austin Travis County EMS, believe it or not, got an amendment a couple of years ago, and they're now under Chapter 143.
Oh,
Their
just
civil
that
service.
specific department.
Just that specific.
Okay, that's
well,
fine.
no, not that specific department. A population bracketed.
Oh, really?
Yes. There's a population bracketed thing now that allows Austin Travis County EMS. And what are the chances? The population bracket seems to only affect one city. Anyway, so yeah, they have a meet and confer agreement, and they have civil service.
Okay. Are they
But-
all the EMS civilian employees in Austin?
Yes, it's a
They're not sworn
standard.
firefighters?
No, it's a
Okay.
standalone well, they're civil service employees now, but they're a standalone agency. And, you know, it's really telling because, you know, the joke in Austin Travis County EMS is that nobody makes it to retirement, and they don't, even though they're very highly paid in Austin. I shouldn't say that. I didn't mean it. Be careful what you say on tape. Even though they're adequately compensated, you know, they can't keep them because they burn out. And they have had some suicides, and they've had some people diagnosed with PTSD, and they've got problems. And, you know, I mean, those problems are real, and I'm trying to really reach out to y'all and make you understand that when you're serving on an ambulance all the time, it really affects you. You know, my son, when he was 17, he worked as a lifeguard at City Pool. And one day, while he was on duty, a woman was swimming laps, had a heart attack. He had to jump in and pull her out, had to do CPR, and she died on the scene, and her kids were there. And, you know, that affected him. That one incident affected him greatly. They had the police counselor come out and talk to him. You know, he didn't do anything wrong. She had a massive heart attack. But, you know, she died right there under his hands by the time Austin Travis County got there. And they got there quick. You know, they couldn't revive her either. But that was one incident. And when you work on an ambulance, you know, you have people die on you on a fairly regular basis. You have people whose lives you save. on a regular basis. And, you know, every time you intubate somebody, every time you know, have to do CPR, you know, I mean, there's just like 1,000 little decisions they have to make. And it's a real, and in a 24-hour shift, you know, you may only have 3 or 4 calls, but you may have 17 or 18. You know, you just never know. And it really affects their entire lives. I mean, they develop a sort of a morbid sense of humor, you know, about it, just to kind of deal with the stress. But it's highly stressful. And the way Corpus has chosen to deal with it is that they rotate people on and off the ambulance. But, and I know I'm not supposed to say this, but because of staffing issues, they have been on the box a lot more than in previous years. And I'm trying, and your solution really is just to require them to maintain certification and keep them available for that purpose. We're committed on our end to making sure that you have adequate ability to staff. That's what we're trying to address. But at the same time, without taking these rights away from these folks, you know, because, you know, it's not just a perception of unfairness. It's really a question of burnout. It's a question of, you know, ability to do the job. As you'll see when you get into those articles, you know, studies done show that it affects the quality of the service they can deliver. It affects all kinds of things. And the people that are most committed to EMS are committed to providing high level of service. And you have a really good EMS department, as I think a lot of people have recognized. We want to maintain that. But adequate time off the box, and we haven't even gotten to the part of, if you're spending most of your time on the box, you're not developing your fire skills either. And that's a problem too, because those skills, if used less often, are very important. Firefighting these days is much more of a science than it was in the old days. And it's getting more so by the minute. So, you know, we're trying to meet you without affecting the grandfather rights. We understand that you have a critical need to be able to have people on the box. We made some proposals designed to try and help that, but to protect, and in one case to increase, but we're trying to offset that. And really what we're trying to do is spread the wealth around, you know, have more firefighter ones available to help with this,
Okay.
which isn't going to be very popular with our firefighter ones. But the problems we're trying to address with you are real. We're not just, this is not just a bunch of firefighters saying, I just want to, like it's always, just because. I mean, there are real reasons behind what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to communicate to you.
Okay.
And
we're listening.
I hear you. I hear you. We want to make this work for both parties.
Do you have any burnout information specific to Corpus Christi?
I don't. I will tell you this, that I personally believe that problems associated with this are a lot more than we realize. You know, it's just like, you know, I don't know if you've seen these studies recently that soldiers coming back from Iraq, I think that 1 in 3 has PTSD, but many of them are undiagnosed. I think that you have a lot of firefighters that have sleep disturbance and, you know, things of that nature. But, you know, they just accept it as part of the stress of the job. And I think a lot of them have strong constitutions, but everybody has their weaknesses. And, you know, I mean, there's no better way to acquaint yourself with this stuff than to, I mean, spend a shift with them. Or, you know, in Austin, to be on the Citizen Oversight Committee, you have to actually go out and work a shift with police officers down in one of the busier sections so that you know kind of the pressures that they're under. And I'm not suggesting that y'all need to do that, but it sure wouldn't hurt, and we would welcome it if you want to go out with them and spend a night with them and see what it's like, because it's pretty eye-opening. I mean, since I started working with police, I've been shocked at what I've learned about them, and firefighters the same way.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a lot to discuss on this particular issue. We recognize that you were concerned about burnout, and we don't ignore that. There are a lot of things that we at the department do in order to prevent that, to alleviate any potential for burnout. But the you know, it concerns me, and I haven't read the proposal that you sent this morning, but I anticipate that it probably keeps the same grandfathering where, if you reach a maximum of so many years, you get off the ambulance, and that's available to everybody. I haven't read the new proposal, so I don't know if that's what's in there.
Pretty much,
What
but it
concerns me
increases the amount of time before you hit the grandfather.
by a couple of years.
Yeah,
Right. Well,
but I also want to point out to you that the current staffing problems you have really happened over the last couple of years. And help is on the way, we believe. But, I mean, we would be more than willing, I think, to consider, you know, establishing a task force to examine this thing and to see how we could, you know, do it going forward. You know,
Well, you
what
know-
we're really doing in these contract talks is just dealing with an immediate problem that we think is gonna resolve itself in large degree as you bring these new people on board.
right, and we don't wanna just put a Band-Aid on the issue, we wanna make sure that this is something that we don't ever fall back into, you know. So what concerns me about the voluntary demotion as proposed is that, you know, if you look at it, you have a large amount of firefighters, who ride the ambulance that have the ability to say, no, I'm not riding the ambulance at a certain amount of time, lessening the pool from which we can pull. So it kind of actually exaggerates the frequency that someone's gonna have to ride the ambulance, and that's an issue. So I need to figure out a creative way to figure out how do we bridge that gap, you know. I think we both have the same goals. We want to have ambulances staffed and you know, we want to have a full complement. That's what we're working on the management side, and we've committed to have that goal, and we're working towards it, and we're making strides in getting there. But you know, we don't have any specific information of Corpus Christi. I know you probably don't have it, but there are great distinctions between the Austin Travis County EMS and the Corpus Christi Fire Department that you have to take into consideration when you're dealing with the information that you have provided for us. As you know, Corpus is a fire-based EMS. Austin's not. It's a privatized third party, or it was privatized, but it was a third party.
It's a City of Austin, Travis County operation.
But
there is
it's a
another
separate.
important difference, and that is this: they only work 2 shifts a week.
They only work 2 shifts a week, but they're all paramedics, and their sole duty is ambulance duty in Austin.
Right, you're right.
In Corpus, what we work towards is to balance the workload, and so they're switching off between the fire truck and the ambulance. That when we try to switch off between the fire truck and the ambulance, it becomes an issue when we don't have enough people to pull from, you know, that can actually ride ambulance duty, which voluntary demotion creates a major problem for us on that. You know, and in the Austin Travis County EMS, they have 1 paramedic, 1 EMT ride their ambulances. In Corpus, we at least always have two paramedics. That's what they strive to do. That's, I believe, the service that they've been providing. So that shows that there's, you know, that helps alleviate that support when in the information that you were giving to me said that, you know, there was only 1 paramedic that was being forced to do, you know, to make all the decisions, et cetera, without any support. One big difference is that the Austin EMS, they received over 130,000 calls for service between April 2014 and April 2015. So that's 130,000 calls, and I believe they may, I browsed the report, so I don't know all the specific details, but I think that they may have, they received those calls, and the paramedics and the EMS responded to approximately 113,000. In the calendar year 2013 here in Corpus, we received 35,000 calls for EMS. So there's a significant difference there. The frequency of the calls in Austin is a lot higher than Corpus. So there's a lot of distinctions. But let me tell you, we're not ignoring the burnout, okay? The burnout concern that the fire union has. attempted to do several things, previously.
We have 11.
We've attempted to do different things previously, which have all been opposed by the association. And one of them was to try and get more medic units. Of course, we're working on the staffing issue at the same time, but one of them was to get more medic units. That was opposed by the fire union. Another thing was to keep firefighters on ambulance duty to minimize the number of times a medic has to ride out. That's a concern, and that was opposed by the fire union. And the other one was to implement a community paramedicine program to reduce the call volume, to have those people, provide a case management service to those people who are habitual users of 911 that really don't need 911. They need medical care. They need access to doctors and services, etc. So we see that. So we'll take that into consideration. We'll look at your proposal. We're reading your information and taking it into consideration, but please understand that we have to allow for those distinctions, because the Austin EMS is entirely different from the Corpus Christi Fire Department ambulance service.
Roxy, you're making a couple of things. You're making a comparison. I mean, Austin Travis, y'all run 11 ambulances per shift. Austin Travis County runs a lot more than that. If you look at the per capita call volume, then I don't think you're going to find that Austin is much higher than Corpus Christi. And you know what?
Yeah.
The other thing you need to know is that in Austin Travis County, even though they do have a separate ambulance service, the firefighters make runs on all those calls too. So that the firefighters are actually getting there before the ambulances a lot of times.
But the information you had provided me was on the
Austin County.
and that's why we're just pointing out those distinctions. Those paramedics are solely on the ambulance all day long, and they do have those hybrid shifts that we don't have here. They have shifts that can be varying hours, and there's no there's no consistency to that. Here in Corpus Christi, we don't have those hybrid shifts. We provide consistency. You're on a 24-hour shift, and then you have so many days in between them, et cetera. You're I think on an average of 10 shifts a month, 9 shifts every 27-day period, et cetera.
But one other thing you said, and I want to make this real clear, we were never opposed to putting additional ambulances in service here. You put 2 additional ambulances in service without increasing staffing, and as a result of that, the people that you used to staff those ambulances were pulled off of fire trucks, thus lessening the complement. We simply wanted you to create additional positions to staff those ambulances. We're also not opposed to a community paramedicine program. What we wanted, I don't remember all the details of that, but certainly we wanted the opportunity to participate in that, as opposed to having it dropped on us as a fait accompli. And if you want to include a proposal about a community paramedic program in the current round of negotiations, we'll certainly consider it, because we're not opposed to something like that. It's just, we were opposed to the way things happened. Increasing the ambulances is not a bad thing if you increase staffing to go along with it. We're not saying that you were bad people because you didn't increase staffing. You may have had very legitimate reasons why you couldn't do that. But it is a safety issue for firefighters. When you go down from 4 to 3 on a truck, that's a safety issue. I mean, it is. And so that was the firefighters' concern. And, but I want to point out that if you look at the change to Article 14, Section 7, that's designed to help you get more people in the EMS stations who are available to the ambulances and also available to occupy that paramedic position, because you have a paramedic on every piece of fire equipment that you run too. So that the idea there is to help you with that. The idea of increasing the time that firefighter 1s have to be available to the ambulance, of increasing the amount of time that firefighter 2 EMS before they can voluntarily demote. All of those are designed to help you with the staffing problem. You may not feel like it gets you where you need to be, but let's talk about it, because we want to get you where you need to be. We want to impinge upon the rights of firefighters as little as possible. As I told you, I mean, the current contract allows them to kind of vote with their feet, just to give up their certification. We don't want that, and I know you don't want that.
We don't want that.
And so, you know, we're really trying to avoid that, but we really need to look for a win-win situation. And if we can find something that helps us with the immediate problem and put together a group and look at the problem long-term to resolve it, that may be an answer now. Y'all may be resistant to that because you don't want to kick the can down the road, but, you know, that's going to get us into some real difficult issues now that we maybe don't have to address right now. You know, the ball's in your court, but I'm just asking you to consider that, and let's keep talking about it.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to say is that I know that we're doing these proposals back and forth, but, you know, sometimes there may be ideas that you don't capture in the proposal with regard to addressing this, so we want to encourage that kind of discussion. I know that we're going to do that from our side. So I just want to lay that out there so that, you know, we're not just limited by the sheeted paper. If there's ideas out there that your team wants to let us know, hey, have you ever thought about this? Please do it, because this is the time and the place to do this and have this discussion. So,
you know, some of the ideas I've already talked to you about, but they're things that really would require a lot of thought and effort. One of those things is to restructure the whole Firefighter 2 rank. You know, right now you've got this dichotomy between Firefighter 2 EMS and Firefighter 2 driver that is kind of singular at Corpus. And so,
are you in that idea? Are you saying that Firefighter 2 would the engineer or the driver be another position outside the Firefighter 2? In your
not really. No? I mean, if you know, and I'm not giving you any specific ideas or any specific proposals.
I understand that.
But if you look at San Antonio, for example, everybody, when they promote to driver, I think they call it fire equipment operator there, everybody knows that they're going to spend their first X years riding on an ambulance before they get transferred to an engine. But they also know that after, you know, a certain amount of time, they are going to get transferred to an engine. And then, you know, somebody who's newly promoted will come in behind them. You know, and so that's worked pretty well for them. I mean, they do other things to create incentives for the ambulance. I think in San Antonio, the ambulance people are 1-on-3 off instead of 1-on-2 off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting that here, but I'm just saying, you know, that they do things, but they have a pretty steady stream of people. And you know that when you get on an ambulance, you're going to be there for 2 or 3 years, continuous, no breaks. But
in San Antonio, can firefighter 1s and firefighter 2s ride the ambulance?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. What do firefighter 1s do?
Tailboard.
Tailboard, okay.
And, you know, I mean, there's different models, but the idea is, you know, I mean, that's one way. You get on there, you're there a time, and then you get off. Here, you know, you rotate on and off. And historically, it's been a kind of a 50-50 thing here. You know, I'm half-time I'm riding on, half-time I'm not. And that works pretty good. But lately, you know, the 50-50 has, you know, they've not been able to maintain that. And so you're spending more and more time on the ambulance and less time on the fire engine, and you don't get that kind of break from it. And, you know, I'm not suggesting that we are Austin Travis County EMS. As you suggested, they're 100%.
Yeah.
All the time,
And
year in, year out.
our fire trucks here in Corpus Christi, they respond to emergency medical calls the same time when an ambulance does as well.
I think so. I mean, you know, it greatly,
In fact,
because
I
you've
think
got,
the
what,
fire truck
17
gets-
stations and
yeah.
only 11 of them have an ambulance.
I think fire trucks get there first
A
most
lot
of the
of
time.
times, a lot
And
of
those
times.
fire trucks are equipped with advanced life support systems and a paramedic as well.
They're ALS, and all of them usually have a paramedic that's assigned.
Yeah.
There are shifts where that's not true. And I think,
Are we talking here?
In Corpus? There are shifts
In
where
the
it's,
past, but though that was fixed.
that's already, that's not happening anymore, correct?
It's not anymore.
Okay.
I can't imagine you can have it, you couldn't qualify it as ALS if you didn't have a paramedic on it, so. I mean, if you had a shift where you didn't have a paramedic available, I don't think you could run ALS at that
Right.
point.
You're not an ALS engine at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
And so, you know, we're looking at both aspects of it. I mean, you know, you gotta have paramedics for your ambulances, but you gotta have them for your fire equipment too. So.
Okay. Great. I have questions, but it'd probably be better
Yeah.
to ask for
Let's,
my
yeah, let's,
management guy. I had questions like, you know, is how many times, is there ever an instance where a fire truck is the one that responds to an emergency medical call and and does the job before an ambulance gets there?
Yes.
Is that a question
So-
here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that happens all, so,
All the
okay.
time.
Absolutely.
Routine.
I will tell you from being 27 years on the ambulance, the crews that are saving the patients are the medics on the engines.
Okay.
It's just that quick response.
So what's?
sometimes, yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's a small incident and it can be
Yeah.
resolved in the first minute or two.
And sometimes it can be a big incident the fire truck, the people on the fire truck have to deal with.
If it's a big incident, the ambulance is gonna get there. The fire truck may get there first, ambulance is gonna get there. If there's any kind of transport, then ambulance is gonna do it obviously.
So then, this leads to my next question, then what would be the difference with the burnout issues on a fire truck versus an ambulance if they're both ALS equipped? And
Well,
they
the
both
fire
have
truck gets there
paramedics?
first, and their job is to provide emergency medical support until the ambulance arrives.
Right.
When the ambulance arrives, they take over. You know, and so most of the major stuff that's done, they're gonna do, and they're certainly gonna transport to the hospital.
But they're all going to the same scene, the same incident, seeing the same things, et cetera?
Sure,
Okay.
but it's like, you know, I go in to see my doctor, and the nurse comes and takes my vitals, or he takes my vitals, and then I ultimately get to see the doctor, and the doctor does, you know, I won't call it the more important stuff, but you know, the procedure.
The things that they're qualified to
Yeah.
do, that's right.
Yeah, you know,
But-
the fire truck guy is there in a limited capacity to do whatever needs to be done until the ambulance can arrive, then the ambulance takes over, and so the great majority of, especially the important medical care, is gonna always be provided by the ambulance. And of course, if
But
the
the
fire
fire
truck gets
truck-
called for anything except, then they're out of.
But the fire truck with the ALS, that's ALS equipped, which everyone is here in Corpus Christi, and with the paramedic, can do the same, can provide that same
Everything except
service.
transport.
Except transport.
Right.
Okay.
And they will, but literally, if they're doing CPR on a patient, when the ambulance arrives, the ambulance crew takes over and the fire truck goes back to the station. Only the ambulance remains. And the ambulance may be there for another couple of hours. Fire truck's back in the
Right.
station.
Okay.
Fire truck is just immediate until the ambulance can arrive. It really expands the reach.
But the people on the fire truck, the firefighters on the fire truck and the firefighters on the ambulance are both being exposed to the same situation. In fact, the fire truck's the one getting there first. Sees often.
Sometimes.
Often.
Well, I don't
so-
mean
so-
to imply that the fire crews aren't experiencing stressful stuff, but the duration, the severity, and the number of procedures that are performed by the ambulance crews are much greater.
Okay. Okay. All right, are there any other, did we go over all of your proposals?
I think so. I mean, what I would say is that you're gonna find, I think, that we're gonna work with you as best we can on everything. I mean,
Okay.
really, you know, if you think we're gonna be unreasonable in economics, we hope not to be. If you think we're gonna be unreasonable in the EMS stuff, we hope not to be. If you think we're gonna be unreasonable in maintenance standards, of course we are. But we really wanna work to find solutions that work for y'all and work for us. I'm not trying to blow smoke at you, I'm here to help these folks better their working lives. And I'm gonna strive to do that, but I realize that at the end of the day, we gotta find a way to pay for it all.
We'll
Yeah,
go-
can
we
you tell me a little bit
probably-
about the afternoon schedule? I think you said y'all had to break.
Yeah, we had to break, but that may change a little bit, but we may be able to do, we've usually been doing an afternoon session sometime between 3 and 4 o'clock that lasts until 4 or 5 or whatever, so I think we can still be, we need to take a lunch break, so I'm thinking maybe if we come back to the table, it'll probably be about 4 o'clock.
Okay, that's
We
fine.
can probably work on getting a tentative agreement on that one, I think it was supplemental pays.
Yeah, supplemental benefits, not
Supplemental
pays.
benefits, I'm following up on the health, and we may be able to provide you with some counter proposals, if not TAs, on several other ones, and try and see what other information we can get you before then.
Okay, sounds good.
And just because I know that the next session's not gonna be till June 11th, but I will be sending you information that you have requested and information we believe that y'all need to have in order to be able to evaluate the economics just as we know.
Okay, very good.
Are we on?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, starting off, we went over the tentative agreement for Article 8, just basically we're agreeing that that subject is being covered by 21 of the management rights article.
Mhm.
I do recognize that we're still negotiating on the management rights article, and we owe you a counter proposal from the one that you had this morning. We're working on that. If for some reason, we can't agree to this particular subject within that article, as any other TA, we can reopen it up if we need to. But we just wanted to sign it knowing that we both understood that.
Yeah.
So, okay. But that'll,
Okay.
and I just printed what you sent over. I didn't make any changes.
See, John's gonna tell Johnny, I got something done.
I got some with significance.
Two TAs, maybe 3. Okay. What I have sent you is our counter proposal to UA 14. Basically, I basically just have some questions. The only thing that we did do a little bit of language change was on that last one with regard to the copies of the agreement. The first question is highlighted on section 1, and it was that part where it says the fire chief, that standards
Subject to
regarding the
requirements.
inspections, maintenance, and replacement uniforms, as well as the uniform specification shall be established by the fire chief subject to the requirements of this agreement. We do recognize that it maintains the status quo in the old contract, but we just wanted to clarify a little bit what that means, because there aren't any requirements set out by this agreement with regard to inspection, maintenance, and replacement, other than specific things the uniforms have to have, things
That's
like that.
right.
So basically, it's the chief's discretion, but he's limited by certain parameters set in the agreement. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
For example, G just below it, shirts have to have certain information on them per.
He can't require more, he can't require less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Okay.
And like the department can require style and color changes to the shirts, but obligated to pay cost per item 3 new t-shirts, those.
So whatever's within that article, that's what the
Mhm.
limitations are to his discretion.
Exactly.
Okay. That's the way I understood it. I just want to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Okay.
The next question is on section 6.
Right.
On August 1st of each year, the old contract didn't have a time limitation, or set a time when you were supposed to do this. So that's new. But I wanted to see what that means. If everyone were to submit their assignment preference forms August 1st of each year, is the fire department required to keep them for consideration for that entire year as vacancies come up? Is there?
No, if I may.
Yeah,
Sure, yeah, because
What
I'm
did
not
you
sure
know
how
more
it
about
works.
that?
Because the way it works
And-
now, I think you just submit it.
Historically, the way it's always been was you can submit a station preference form anytime throughout the year. What has been the practice the last couple of years is that The operations chief will only entertain those requests during a certain period. You can submit them anytime throughout the year, but during, and I think it was July and August, that's when you would start making some move arounds and changes. And if somebody was at a busy station and wanted to go to an outlying station, you would try to do it all within a 30-day window, rather than have to do it throughout the entire year.
Throughout the year, okay.
So it never was just, you can only submit at a certain time. It was, if I sent a request in January, it would be considered in July.
Okay,
And I think we put August 1st in there because that's when they've been doing it. I mean, that's when the chief has been
Somewhere in that
looking at the forms.
okay.
So,
Well, what I didn't want to create was some sort of, some misunderstanding that would result in a grievance.
no,
You know?
I mean, if you want to remove that on August 1st of each year,
Yeah,
we're fine with that. I mean,
okay.
that
I
it's
just didn't-
just,
I
It's
didn't know
been
what-
working fine like it has, cause
Right, and
it's
that's-
just whenever he's got time.
See, I think adding that August 1st of each year adds, muddies the water a little bit, because if people are going to be submitting it throughout the whole year, and then somebody says, well, I put mine on August 1st, yet the person who did it afterwards got the assignment and I didn't, that could potentially end up in a grievance. So if we can agree that the current practice is working, and the management is, has discretion on how they're doing it pursuant to what the agreement is, and they limit it to that time, that maybe we don't need that August 1, because it kind of creates confusion, is basically what.
I have to talk to my guys
Sure.
in private, but I don't think that's a problem.
Okay. And then there was the addition of station assignment preference form generally will not be used to fill vacancies governed by section 7 of this article unless no one bids for the vacancy. That just means that section 7 prevails over section 6 unless nothing comes out of section 7, is that correct? Okay. And I think that's the way it had been already.
Yes, that's
Okay,
what
it's
they're
just,
doing.
it's just clarifying what the practice was.
Mhm.
Okay. The next question, so we're okay with that. One of the other questions I had generally with assignment preference forms and station assignment by seniority, and I had to kind of draw it out for myself on the whiteboard, was how it interacts with the promotional promotions procedure and the eligibility, because they kind of overlap, and I didn't want one to detrimentally affect the other one. But I think the way it's been working, the way that they do it, and I think like a vacancy comes up, a promotion is made, that vacancy is subject to the promotional procedure, but where that vacancy winds up is dictated by the seniority preference deal and the assignment preference forms, correct?
Yeah, and you guys, if she says it wrong, you know more about the ins and outs, you break in.
It took me a while, I had to draw a little diagram to figure it out. I just didn't want, this to be in conflict with any promotional procedures was my concern. But as far as I know, and as far as I've been told, there have been no issues with this.
Mhm.
Okay. On section 7C, you added that second sentence. When I read it, and I'm not, I don't deal with the day-to-day operations of this, so I may not be understanding this, but to me, the first and second sentence kind of said the same thing. What was the intent of adding that second sentence? It's basically, the first sentence basically says the firefighter 1 rank, the seniority bid procedure will only be used to fill positions in non-ambulance stations. Then the second sentence you added said firefighter 1s who are not eligible to be assigned to the ambulance may not be permanently assigned to EMS stations. Does it say something different?
I think it was just intended to clarify that in the future, to make it absolutely clear to the firefighter 1s that they're not going to be eligible through the seniority procedure or otherwise to be assigned to those stations.
Okay. Okay, just clarity.
Mhm.
And then letter I,
Yes.
that's status quo, but I want to make sure, I want to know what that means. Firefighters assigned to relief duty will be those most recently promoted to suppression, because I think Not recently, but a long time ago, there may have been grievances on this issue.
Yeah, relief duty is generally, you don't have a permanent station assignment.
Okay,
And that's usually the least senior people. The newer people are the ones that have to hop from station to shift and shift to shift. But what I'm understanding from the guys right now is we don't really have any relief personnel right now.
okay,
They used to have like a relief captain, a relief driver, like when I got promoted, they called it like a runaround. And you went to different stations, you covered vacations, you covered injury leave, you covered whatever, until a permanent spot opened up, and then boom, that's where you landed. And then the next guy got promoted, they were on runaround, you know.
And as you bring
I
these
see.
But
40,
they don't do that anymore.
okay.
as you bring these 40 new people in, you may
Be
have
able to do
relief
something like that,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, but right now, it's not a,
That's a good idea. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I just didn't, I wanted to clarify what that meant, so that helps me.
Okay.
Toxicology report, section 9, there's no problem there, status quo. And then, section 11, was copies of the agreement, and we made a couple of suggestions, that we think, kind of bring this contract into this day and age with electronics and electronic documents, et cetera. We say the city shall distribute verbatim copies of this agreement in electronic format to all firefighters within 90 days of execution of this agreement by the parties. 2 hard copies of the agreement will be maintained at each fire station for the convenience of the firefighters. And we have the ability to do the group email to all firefighters. I guess that's how they do, that's how they advise of policy changes or any other announcements that they have to make. So, and that could actually be done quicker than if we were to print out those copies and deliver them. That can be done immediately.
And are you talking about sending them to their like home email addresses as opposed?
Well, we have the ability very easily to send them to their cctexas.com. As firefighters and employees of the city, they each have an email account. So that would be the most efficient and easiest way for us to do it. If we were to send them to home,
They can forward it to their home from that email.
And that was gonna be my next question.
they can forward it to
They
themselves.
can all forward it, and that's not.
Oh, yeah. The easiest thing for us to be would be to, we already have it set up where we could automatically, HR and the fire department have it where they can automatically just blast email all firefighters with the document. And then they can do with that document whatever. They can save it on any computer, they can print it out, they can email it to themselves, they can put it
Okay.
on their iPad, on their phone, anything like that.
I have a question. I know in the past, the city has always provided an individual copy for each member. What kind of cost is associated with that?
I asked that question and I haven't gotten the answer yet. I've contacted the certain people that are, the HR and the print department, so I will be able to, I asked the same question.
Okay. Yeah.
So, cause I was curious to see what it is.
Because that is a benefit when each person has access to one, not only at the fire station, not only to their work email, but even in their bag, or if they go to another station, or if they're at home. It's nice to have a hard copy.
Yeah.
So if the cost isn't that significant, then maybe that's something, have an electronic copy until we can get the printed copies out.
What,
Food for thought.
what if we were to agree to the electronic copy, would y'all be willing to say, give 25 hard copies to the association?
Sure, something like that.
Okay. Let us talk among ourselves about it.
Sure.
So that's the last remaining issue.
That's really and it really isn't much of an issue. It's just kind of trying to figure out logistically what makes sense and what's quickest, what's most easiest for everybody. I think, a lot of the stuff that I do now, instead of carrying all my, and you as well, Craig, instead of carrying all our files like we used to, I have everything on my smartphone or my computer.
Yeah, I think, let me just caucus with my guys for a minute, and then I think we can
Sure.
wrap this one up.
Okay.
And I think we think that we're close to TA on 13, we just need to get some confirmation about some time.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, on 13.
That's health insurance.
Yes, I wasn't able to get confirmation from Steve that meeting has happened, but if it hasn't happened, it probably will tomorrow. And
Okay.
I will be able to tell you, of course, we have to do it at the open session, but I will be able to send over a proposed tentative agreement once I get that confirmation.
Okay. Okay, yeah, let us,
The city council meeting today kind of threw, you know, since we try to, since city council meeting's going on today, that kind of threw a loop into me getting stuff as quickly as I usually do.
okay, well, let us caucus real quick and see if we can reach agreement on this one, and it'd be good to put that in there.
Sure, and then, just for you, I know that you haven't had time to review it, but I sent you the details of our, costing on that $25 per shift ambulance pay, and that was based on the costing, that we provided you this morning. And then I did a preliminary, because I need to go through it and make sure that all our formulas were correct, et cetera, but since we already had that established, it was, we did a quick costing of your new proposal, taking off that year and then incorporating I think the signing bonus was still the same from 8/1/14, and we changed it to 1.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. So if there's any changes to that, I'll let you know, but that it should be pretty accurate.
But according to the new data that you're providing, I'm just looking at it real quick, the bulk of increase from our proposal, the great majority of it is from the base wage increases.
Yes.
Of the 16.5, 9.9.
Yeah, the majority of that, the ultimate cost came out to 16.5. The majority of that is on the base wage increase.
Okay.
We do have a little bit, you know, that certification pay.
Mhm.
Also, that's $2.6 million, and assignment pay is $1.8 million.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'll also provide this to you so far, just so you can, for your overtime. I don't have the specific calculations. They're working on that as we speak, and I'll email this to you so you have it in writing. But our current overtime budget for the fire department is approximately $2.3 million for fiscal year 15. That's ending September 30th, 2015. Currently, through the end of April, we've already spent $1.9 million over the last 7 months of that budget. That's 81.5% of the budget. If it keeps on that trend, it's projected that the overtime will be over budget at a total of $3.2 million. So almost, you know, $900 to $1 million over budget. So I think that's very important to look at. So I just want you to have that information. I'll email it to you so you have it in paper, you know, written down. And because ultimately, if this is a trend, unfortunately, there may be no cost savings, but I can't tell you that right now because we don't have the rest of the calculations. But this is something that we have to, that's part of the figuring that out.
And to reiterate what I said earlier today, I think that a lot of that overage that you're seeing this year in your overtime budget will be alleviated by the addition of 42 people. I realize that won't happen quickly because they've got to get out of certification training. But when they get out of the academy and into the station, I mean, adding 40 people to the existing complement of 300 and something is very significant. So
Okay.
I think that will lessen your overtime cost in and of itself, and we want credit for that on our side of the ledger. So you claim that their overtime budget for this year was what now?
It's approximately $2.3 million for fiscal year 15 this year. Say that again? Budget. Yeah, that's a budgeted overtime for the fire department.
And you are at about 81% of that right now?
81.5% has been spent through April. That's 7 months, and that's a total of $1.9 million. And the overtime expense is projected for the year to be based on what we have right now, $3.2 million over, you know, and that would be about $1 million over budget. And that's because we haven't even gone through, July, December, and January are heavy overtime months, and we haven't even hit those yet. So it may be worse than the $3.2 million, but you know, using the numbers we have right now, that's what it's projected to be.
Okay,
So, and I'll email you that stuff too.
okay. Okay, very good.
Okay.
We will caucus real quickly and ask y'all just to hang around for a few minutes.
Sure.
And see if we can.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Okay, on Article.
Article 14, which is supplemental benefits.
Okay, you've given me a tentative agreement on Article 14.
Yes, and as I mentioned, we changed 11 slightly. 2 hard copies in the stations and other work locations for
Okay.
like training, prevention, you know, the places that aren't quote-unquote stations.
Sure.
And 30
Fire
hard copies for the
administration.
association. Yeah,
Okay.
fire administration. So. And if y'all can agree to that, then we've got a TA on that.
Okay, and just, on this other work location, since that's a new part, if it's not at a location, can you just let somebody at fire administration know so we can get those 2 hard
Yeah.
copies rather than file agreement? It's as easy
Yeah, no,
enough
we-
as to file.
We're not gonna, yeah.
We don't wanna assume.
Yeah,
Yeah, so anyway,
trust but verify.
yeah, just let us know. We'll
Okay,
get it.
yeah, no, yeah, we got you.
Okay.
Okay, I think during the break, I also had sent you my update on Article 2. That's not in the form of a proposal, but
Right.
just to show you definitions that I'm proposing that we add, like classification, means rank. I forget what the other one was I added, and I
Full duty
updated some that
firefighters.
have dates in them.
Okay.
But,
What I will do during this break that we have before June 11th is add the things that we have noted on, I think on some comments on the side of some of our TAs who've said this needs to be defined, or make sure including the definition. So we'll go through and add that as well,
Okay.
and I'll email that to you.
okay.
Okay.
And one last thing I did want to mention, you know, you have joined issue, so to speak, on every proposal that we've made except for Article 9, Association Rights, and Article 38, Association Health and Benefit Trust. And I really would like to get something from you on those. I know
Okay.
that you have said in the past, Association Rights has some economic implications. And obviously, to the extent that that's true, we need that to get the whole
Sure.
economic picture.
Okay,
And the same with the Health and Benefit Trust.
okay.
So,
We will do that.
So-
So are those the only 2 that we have not responded to?
that I don't have any response from you.
Okay.
I think we do have on the other, that remain not yet agreed. I think that we have provided the last proposal,
Yeah.
so the ball's in your
Yeah,
court. but-
all of them, I think all of them are on this now, so we'll prepare those and
Okay.
submit them to you.
And we've got a break coming, and I know that you're gonna be out of pocket some of that, but if you wanna submit anything to us unofficially between now and June the 11th, which is about 2.5 weeks away,
Okay.
we'd be glad we'd be just that much ahead of the game.
Absolutely, I agree.
So,
Okay.
okay. Okay, y'all enjoy the break.
Good.
Enjoy the
I'm
Can we
gonna
get a
go.
location for June 11th?
Not yet, we're working on that. I'm hoping to get that, hopefully by the end of the week, if not the first of next week. We were looking at the American Bank Center, but that's just too hard to get into. I didn't, logistically, it's not comfortable.
We don't like.
Yeah, I didn't like it either, so, so I've crossed that out. Yeah, that's one of the things, we're looking at, fire administration, seeing if we we wanted to try and keep a neutral location, and one is, you know, a nice one like this, it's comfortable, et cetera, but we'll see, I'll
City
email.
Hall HR has the conference room.
The problem is, you know, with the city hall, is that we're having trouble identifying, caucus rooms or breakout rooms, that's the big, cause in the basement, we have that HR training room that would be perfect for, the open deliberations. But then when it comes up to breaking to caucus, we would have to go, you know, to the 5th floor, to another floor. It becomes a little bit, hard logistically. So I was looking at that, and I was trying to identify whether we had any caucus rooms on the same level. But I'll be working on that, and I will let you know as soon as I can, because I would like to get those posted, rather quickly, so we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
And I'm looking for locations for 11, I'm confirming 15 and 16. 16 is a council meeting, so I need to see what's up on that agenda, make sure that I have a quorum. I'm gonna just tell you, as long as I have a quorum, we will be here. So,
Okay.
I don't need my whole entire team, I just need people here on the table. So, and the right people. Cause we're having these, you know, for instance, if we're talking about cost, we need to make sure Eddie's gonna be here, and if it's, you know, anything, you know, we need to make sure that we have
Insurance, Steve.
insurance stuff, we need to make sure Steve's here. But, I'm confident that insurance deal will already be done before we, you know, before
Knock
long,
on
so.
wood.
Mhm.
Okay, y'all.
Okay.
I'll see you next time.
Thank you.